Welcome to the Whitetail Legacy Podcast.
And we get the back view of him. And I mean, it's just a mega.
52 yards is a long shot. Magnum PI, what we named him. No idea.
Just a magnum.
Yeah, just a magnum.
Come on cam last year, we said probably 150, mid 150.
Yeah.
Same doe from the morning come out with that 9-pointer.
Here steps out this 90-inch 8-pointer. You're like,
I'm like, okay, well, there's still a buck back there grunting.
Yeah.
And then out steps like another 90-inch 8-pointer. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm like, deer right there.
Yeah, like
and he's already
yards.
30 yards.
Yeah.
He was literally 5 yards from the base of the tree. Could have been, had a buck down at 1:40 in the afternoon, back there deep on public. 3 does come out pretty early. It was like 245, 24-yard shot, sent the combat veteran, and I tell you what, man, dude, it just smoked. We always get so jacked up when the other person kills. It's just almost like we got it done.
Yeah. And when you killed that doe, I was like, hell yeah, man.
And we come down here to Missouri.
I asked Comey one more time. I'm like, is it a good buck? And he goes, yeah, real good, solid buck. I'm like, all right, boom. And the deer just drops. Sure. Super special meat.
Whitetail Legacy Podcast, bringing you back to the hunt and leaving a legacy. Baller Rut.
Welcome to the Whitetail Legacy Podcast, coming in your ear holes on this glorious Wednesday. We got a pretty awesome episode for you today, lined up with Jake from Exodus. He's got a little project that just started that's not going to be little for very long, I believe.
No.
He started a podcast all about buying land and all the ins and outs that you need to know for a guy like us, a normal guy, to run into your first piece of actually owning a little property. So we're going to have him on, talk about all that. This is also one of the owners of Exodus Trail Cameras. So why don't we start off with Exodus this week? What do you got, homie?
Well, we are getting ready to get in deep here on the camera launch for the tail end of summer here, I guess. And we're going to get our Exodus cams out there, every single one of them. We got some Lift 2s, we got some Treks, we got Renders, we got the whole bunch here. And this is year 3 of us running them with no issues. And even if there was an issue, it's still covered with a 5-year no BS warranty. So if you guys are wanting that kind of security and something to count on, you can get into that at ExodusOutdoorGear.com.
All right, I got last breath this week. How's it going, Jake? Jake just came on the Zoom call with us. He's going to hit the intro here with us. We were like, well, maybe we can get the intro in before you come on, but we'll run through this real quick for you. I'm going to do Last Breath TV this week, guys. We've been talking about the launch party for months now, but if you guys can't make it to the launch party, everything that we are going to air there is going to go on their YouTube quickly after that. So their series is going to be coming out where you can see all the content if you cannot make it to the launch party. And like I said, if you are from out of state or far away, we have people coming from multiple different states to see this show. You definitely can maybe catch a carpool on the way. So, but if you are interested in checking them out and you can't make it to the launch party, go ahead and check them out on YouTube. You got Bow Hunting League?
Yeah, guys, just reiterate here everything that you need to know about the Bow Hunting League. It is the nation's largest free deer hunting league and hunting contest. It is 100% bow only, no crossbows allowed. And you can sign up and be a part of this with your 3-man team and be a part to win $53,000 in prizes as of right now. I feel like every day they're almost getting another piece in the pie there.
He's going to be like, Chevy truck added to the... He's a wheeling dealer for sure.
Yeah, so you guys can get signed up at bowhuntingleague.com.
All right, you got Next Level?
Yeah, Next Level tip of the week from Next Level Nate is be sure to keep your guys' food dry. Dumping it on the ground should be your last resort. Gravity feeders are strongly recommended, and Nate says that this is due to so it's not limiting the nutritional uptake for your deer. It's, they're getting all the nutrition that these guys are packing into their feed. And if you want to try that out, you can try that out at nextleveldeer.com.
Yeah, if you spend the money to get the bag, you want to get the most out of it.
Absolutely.
And it poured on the ground. I'm assuming if it rains, you're going to lose a lot of it. So, all right. Well, how you doing, Jake?
I'm doing well, guys. How about you?
You're good. Appreciate you making this happen. Our life is absolutely balls to the wall right now. I'm assuming just like yours, with as much as you got going on with, selling land, running the new podcast, and working with Exodus, you're probably busy as hell, just like us. So
Everyone's busy.
Yeah,
Everyone's busy and has a lot of things going.
yeah,
So yeah.
throw a couple kids in the works, and then you're like, I don't know what I did before I was like 20 to 24. I have no idea what I did. Had hella time to do nothing.
Yeah, I still have no kids, so I think that's what makes it a little bit easier. I couldn't imagine having a full house, man.
Yeah, that gives you a little bit more free time, but we appreciate you coming on. We're super excited about your project. Anything that you're involved with, you crush out of the park. So the kind of the lineup of what you're going to do for the normal guy, kind of like our podcast, you're just trying to give the knowledge that is really hard to get, for you. I mean, you just have to talk to someone. Well, how was your experience? And they're going to be able to listen to multiple people's experience in one area. But before we get started in that, introduce yourself a little bit for our listeners if they don't know you already.
Yeah, my name is Jake Hofer. I'm from Central Illinois, not too far from you guys, really, as the crow flies. Co-owner of Exodus Trail Cameras. I handle the marketing for Exodus, and I'm also a licensed broker in the state of Illinois. I work with Land Pros, and recently just launched another podcast under Exodus called the Land Podcast, as you kind of were alluding to there. So that's a snippet of me.
Nice. Yep. You got your hands a little into everything. Like I said, we're kind of rooting for you because you're just such a nice guy and been a friend for a while. So I'm excited for this podcast to start ripping out. So we'll kind of dig into some details, but in a nutshell, what can someone expect from the Land Project podcast?
Yeah, so it's just any project I'm involved in always ends up evolving over time. But right now, as it sits, it is basically a podcast about the pursuit of land ownership for people who are like you and I, that aren't pros, who don't come from a fourth generation farm, that are just like starting from literally square one or maybe zero, and talking to people that were in a similar position, how they did it. It's going to kind of touch on just a lot of different strategies and kind of pulling together this knowledge base, so people can be really good at their first purchase, to where hopefully it could lead into more things, or just maybe it's that one farm and they're super happy with it. It was a great decision, great purchase. They didn't get hurt. They didn't over leverage themselves, and it's kind of like helping people make this type of decision, because in real estate or really any sort of investing, there's so much information at your disposal. And then me, as a person that deals with helping these people, I'm always trying to learn regardless. And I was like, man, there's not a lot going on over here. There's a lot of like high level things, but there's no one that's like in the trenches. That's like you guys, I have X amount of kids. I make this amount of money. How in the hell can I prioritize my life to make this happen?
Yeah.
And to talk with people like, that have done that process. And I don't know, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm right on the edge of buying something. And me and you've talked multiple times on it, and you've gave me a lot of tips, stuff that I could try and run leads on. And some of them works for me, some of them don't. Everything's a little bit different, but it's going to be really nice to dig into everybody's brain. Maybe you're not from the Midwest and you're talking to a guy who's trying to buy in the East Coast, or he's trying to buy in Ohio, and you're the only guy is, well, I might want to buy some ground in Illinois. And you're like, how am I going to figure out anything about buying ground in Illinois? There's no resource for it out there. And now some people have a place to go and find that resource. So
yeah. And I've talked to people too that have done 20, 40 deals in their life. Man, those guys are sharp.
Yeah.
They know. And it's like, okay, how do we help segue the difference between a guy that's at zero and a guy that's done 40 deals? Like trying to chop off a chunk of their brain and put it in. So we can all get a little bit of information from us. That's part of it too. Yeah.
It's just like your first buck to your 40th buck, they got to get a little easier over time, and you can kind of know what's coming up and know what you need to get it done. But like me walking in 6 months ago, I didn't know hardly anything. I was just like, all right, I want to buy something. That's all I know. And then you got to start from there. And then the biggest struggle for me is just, the finding the piece is really hard for what you want, because like the small pieces are hard to find. The 80s and above seem to be pretty much everywhere, you know, but the very first starter piece, like that 40 or 20, those go quick, you know.
They go quick, and the price per acre is a little bit higher too, because there's a larger pool of buyers.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Once you get over that $350,000 price range, it seems that you're able to get a little bit better deal. That's just kind of what I've seen from pulling an ungodly amount of comps in the area. But I mean, you have to start somewhere. I mean, it's a boatload of cash to try to scoop up a 350.
Yeah. That down
like
payment would be devastating. You'd be like, oh gosh, there's a year's salary gone in one quick swipe.
Yeah, it's insane. But I mean, those starter pieces are key, and just to be prepared so you can move forward, because like you said, they go quick. So if you're like trying to figure out the ropes as you go right then and there, it might not end super well for you. Yeah,
it might be kind of demoralizing when you figure out exactly what you need. So for just in a nutshell, just for our listeners, if someone wanted to do something in 5 years down the road, what would be just some key points you could give them to say this is what you need to start planning to make the process way easier?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think having a 5-year timeline too should set yourself up to be able to actually make something come to fruition. I'm not a lender, so take this with a grain of salt, but like talking with some banks and having good relationships with bankers in the area is key, whether it's a small 3-branch bank or a single branch bank or a bank that you've done business with forever. Just go in there and have a conversation with them. Hey, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm making this year. I think in 5 years, I'll probably be making this. I do or don't have student loans, or I do have a truck payment, or like basically just walk through that whole financial model and say, this is where I think I'm going to be. Is this even, am I wasting my time sitting here, or do I need to basically just walk through and get a really good idea? And a good banker is going to walk through and have that conversation very seriously with you. And like, if you do this, we can do that. So that's really probably step one. Now, maybe that's just a phone call if you're just getting started, but as you get closer to the time to actually try to pull the trigger on something, I would definitely go in and sit down there with them. So that's step one, just making sure your finances are in order. Your household is in order. Like if you're doing this and it's going to be a constant battle with your wife or whatever, and she's like, I don't know why you bought that. Make sure it's not going to cause any rifts in the family there too. So like there's just a lot of front end work to happen. And then I think anyone that's ate up enough to buy a piece of ground can probably figure out if this is actually going to fit their deer hunting goals. So I think that's probably one of the easiest parts. The other thing to consider too is like a lot of people I think say, well, if it's an hour and a half within my house, I'm happy, or an hour within the house, I'm happy. I think that's another big thing. Like, what is your number one goal? Is it to hunt big deer, and that means you might have to drive 2 hours, or is it to have it 20 minutes to your house so you can drive by it every day if you wanted to? So like those are some things that give you about 5 years to do some soul searching on what you really want, because I think that's key.
Yeah, one thing I've figured out is I started talking to banks like a year ago, and some would do 15 years, some would do 20 years. I just found one that would do 30 years. And if you can go around and fill it out, I mean, for a regular guy, 15 to 30 years is game changer level of monthly payment. You're like, wow, okay, I can really stretch this out. Because on land loan, it's kind of risky for the banks, you know what I mean, to step in. So a lot of them don't want to do more than 15 or 20. And for me, I'm like, man, if I could get a 30-year and pay a little extra, I'm in, because you never know what 5 years down the road could happen. And if you're going to buy a piece of ground, you're either going to own it for a really long time or own it and flip it and try to get your money out of it. So for me, if I buy something, I'm just going to set on it, and hopefully my kids won't struggle to find a place to deer hunt. That's the main goal, you know? So doing the research on the banks and going in and talking to them is something that I did. I did like 8 to 10, maybe 12 banks, and just went in there after I talked to you and just started talking to them. And then I talked to a different guy, and then he'd point me to a different guy, and then I went to this bank, and I thought this was the one, and then they led me to another guy, and then I'm like, okay, this is the one. When I'm ready to go, I'll be ready to go on, you know, something that I'm comfortable with. And like you said, talking to your wife and figuring out like, okay, how much am I gonna, because you think, okay, 40 acres, this is what it costs. What can we afford monthly? You know, what's a realistic monthly payment? Because that's going to dictate whether you're going for a 20, a 40, an 80. And then luckily my piece well, not, I mean, kind of luckily, is it doesn't have any income. So once you try to factor in the income off a piece and then what you can pay, that would get very confusing. If it had CRP or ag, it would be very confusing on what you would actually need to get it all done.
Yeah. Now, could you imagine doing all that with like a piece you've been waiting to come to sale forever, and then you're like, oh shit, and you're trying to track down 12 banks in 24 hours, and so-and-so's going to write an offer on it. Like, oh my gosh, could you imagine how stressful that would be? So
you're trying to wait
taking a whole element of stress out of it. Yeah.
And then another thing I did is, if you're interested in a piece and maybe it's not for sale, approach that landowner and say, hey, in the next 5 years, do you have any chance that you think you might sell this ground? And if you were to sell it, what would you want for it? So if it does come up to auction, you kind of have an idea of what they're expecting to get out of the ground. And I was pleasantly surprised when I found my piece how much it was, but it could have been the complete opposite. The guy I could have saved money and been like, okay, I think I'm in the ballpark of what this guy might want, and he could have wanted 100,000 more, and then I'd have been like, well, I'm not even close to, so the deal ain't gonna work. But
yeah, no, I think that's something you guys are really good at is talking to people and kind of like hedging deals off market.
Yeah,
I think you guys talk to a lot of people. That's what you guys do really well, and that's certainly a great approach. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, try to get an idea of what the guy's got in his mind before, if you're going to go off market. If you're just looking, because I looked at a couple pieces that were, on market, and there was one 18 that I was really interested in. I'm like, man, that's a nice little sliver right there. And then I put an offer in on a 16.5 piece, and that fell through. But then when you go from like that 20 to 40, you need a lot more down payment. So you're like, I need a year. Give me 1 year and I'll be in the ball game. So that's the plan now, is just wait another, wait like January time frame is when I'm going to try and pull the trigger. So I'm just saving pretty much everything I can and cutting it tight and picking up the hours when I can to make it happen. So, but
well, that's exciting. It'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, I know.
Sure.
Yeah, once deer season starts, the end of the year is pretty much gone. You're just like, okay,
I say that all the time.
It's time over. But so, how many episodes have you released now so far?
So we have we release episodes every single Monday, and we have I think 3 full episodes out right now.
Nice. Yeah.
So it'll be a mix of like industry experts that I can track down, and then the other like rotating episodes will be first-time land buyer series. So I basically track down people that bought their first piece of ground and everything they learned in the process. Like, what do they do for a living? So I think people realize they're way more relatable than what you think, and there's a lot of misconceptions of like, you have to make a shit ton of money or something crazy.
Yeah.
It is probably just takes a little bit of planning, and that's probably the one element is this planning.
Yeah, one thing I'm really excited about for the podcast is I remember watching Bill Winky on there when he was talking about buying his first property and like how many transactions and how slow it was, and then he did this to get this, and then just made it happen. And if you look at that guy now, you're like, oh, that's probably his family's ground. He was loaded. He got it passed down, and you never know the full story. But you're given an outlet where people can come on and kind of tell like, no, this is how it really went down. This is what I did to actually make it happen. Because I always thought Bill just kind of got that ground. Like, you never know. They don't ever talk about it. And then he actually, when he ended up selling it and moving it, he kind of went into the whole story of it. And it was super interesting to me because I was like, man, this guy's been grinding forever for this, and then now he's giving it up. So definitely kind of changed my outlook on, you think land in Iowa, you got to just fall into that because buying that is, pretty hard to do. It's kind of like land over by you. It seems like it's twice as high as stuff around here almost. It's crazy.
At least 25% more. I call that the Chicago effect. But
yeah. The closer you get to Chicago, you got to add 25%. So it's crazy.
Which is crazy. And then it's like we just finished up a Wisconsin trip for Exodus, and we bounced around all Wisconsin and Minnesota, and I was like looking at land prices throughout the trip, and I was like, man, this looks gorgeous up here, and it's more affordable than where we're at.
It's like northern Missouri. I'm like, oh man, it's pretty nice down there.
Way cheaper
than what I got going on up here. But And that goes back to like, you have to make a plan on if you want it close to your house or you want to travel to be able to hunt. And, the end goal would be to own something close so you can kind of work on a manicure and then own something far away that you could kind of take a trip on. And I would really like to own something small in like southern Missouri, mid-Missouri. So, you could go down there and rifle hunt or something just to have, or go to Nebraska and be able to rifle hunt, something different that you could throw in and then have your piece local. But I'm learning a lot of people get a piece and then pay that off and then leverage that piece to get another piece later on down the road. So I told my wife, I said, I want to start as young as I can. So maybe, when I get 50, I can have some leverage to get something else. So it's definitely a good tactic that people use.
Yeah, I always talk to a lot of people that are like in their late 50s. And they're like, man, if I was your age, or so like, I don't know if it's just, if they just say that, but it's like, well, I mean, definitely have time on our side at this point. So yeah, if you start sooner and chip away quicker than later, it should pay off or compound or something to be exciting. At least
they see the ground, prices back then, and we're thinking, man, it can't get that much higher, but it did for them. Like, they're like, man, if I would have bought this piece back then, I'd be set. So
yeah, and that's why a lot of times too, like local buyers a lot of times don't buy ground in their home area, especially as they get older, because they can remember when it sold for $1,000 an acre. And they're like, oh, this is crazy. And then someone comes in from the outside of the area, happily pays for that. Yeah. And then it just continues to continue to rise. And if you look at anything, it takes about 7 years to double with 7% growth. So just think of that. And land, a lot of places I've seen 5, 6, 7% of growth. So every 7 years, it's going to roughly double. And you can pull like on the University of Illinois has actually a lot of really great resources on land and like land prices throughout the years. It's more geared towards tillable, but I mean, you can see it's seen some like 20% year growth.
Yeah,
the tillable is outrageous.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it seems like the farmers around here, if they want it, there's no price like they won't pay. It's just like if they're at the auction and they want it, and it's close to what they already farm, they just keep bidding. I'm like, this stuff is going. The per acre is astronomical right now. So.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's crazy. Commodities right now are really strong, and that's where I think if you think hunting's emotional, can you imagine farming? Like, I bet it's even more emotional because they're like, I'm 5th generation farmer here. We wanted to buy that for 70 years. Like, we're gonna do everything we can.
Yeah,
that's what I picked up. I don't know if it's for fact, but that would be my guess.
Yeah, that's what it is. It like attaches to this field, or their grandpa owned it or something, and then it's just like price isn't an option. We'll just buy it because that's what we're going to do. Yeah. But with corn so high now,
exactly.
Corn so high now, they make their money, and if they ever want to resell it eventually, like you said, every 7 years, you kind of, the opportunity to resell it. It does seem like people start off with a 20 or 40 and then resell and use that down payment to get something else. And go ahead.
Can you kind of go through that there, Jake? And is it as easy as that sounds, or is there more to it than just that?
As far as like ground compounding that much?
Yeah. Or like having this piece, and then you got your 20 off the get go, and then you want to get into something bigger, and just like kind of Cody was saying, using that as leverage to get into something bigger.
Yeah, I personally have not done this, so I can't speak from experience, but that's basically what most of the time it is. Like, you already make that giant sacrifice, and you feel like the wind gets knocked out of you when you write that first down payment check, and you're like, holy cow, I can't believe we're doing that. And then as they chip away and they get more equity in that, and then if you decide to sell it and hopefully get 20-30% on your money in 4 or 5 years, and then you have all your down payment already, and then you have the equity, and then you have what you sold it for a profit, and then now you have, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 times the amount of cash you actually put down. And then you go put it down 20-30% down on the next piece. And then so the core cash continues to grow. And that means you're able to get more pieces. And then as you kind of like break that barrier, like we talked about, like the small first-time starter pieces, and you can go and buy a bigger rec piece, I think that's where you can walk into a lot more equity. I think a lot of times with smaller pieces, you're probably paying close to retail in terms of like what is appraised for, like what's the true market, just because the pool of buyers and it's so much more competitive to get into it. But as you like continue to get outside of that basis, then I think you can probably find some deals too. And in that way, naturally you're gonna be in a better position typically down in your life anyway. You're gonna start making more money hopefully, and like your kids are gonna go off to college, and then you have less kids at your house. You're like,
Yeah.
So I think life kind of sorts itself out, and then also just the assets you have in hand, increase from paying off the property, and then also from it appreciating as well.
Yeah, if it appreciates some value, and then if you can get into something where you get had some tillable on it, that'd be the end goal, where you get some income, taxes are a little cheaper, and work that, and then build off that. The younger you start, I feel like the more you can build, of course. But if someone ran into some money, that'd be the thing to do, is like buy an 80. Just buy an 80 off the rip, and don't start small, and then your collateral will build so much. As long as corn stays $7, I mean, it's gonna keep ripping.
As long as commodities stay where they're at, they should stay there. But aside from that too, I talk to a lot of people too, and naturally I ask them, like, people that started with a small piece, are you glad you did that? And it's, of course, I'm asking the wrong people, because every single person's like, it's the best thing I ever did. It's the best thing I ever did. It's the best thing I ever did. And it's like, damn, I don't want to hear that. I'm not quite ready, but you say it's the best thing ever. So like and you're not talking to people that maybe over leveraged, or they lost their job, or they got divorced, or something crazy. You don't. Those people aren't like, it was the best thing ever did. Yeah. But overall, for the people it worked great, and they're very happy with this. That's kind of what I always come back to.
Yeah, that's like we were talking today. I mean, everybody wants to own a small piece, just because you have the freedom to do whatever you want. You don't have to go to the landowner, even if you're leasing, and be like, hey, kind of thinking about planting a food plot over here, or I kind of want to put some cedar trees out. You just do it. You just, like, everything out there, like that tree, I own that tree. Like, if you want to cut it down, let's cut it down.
Man, this tree's got to go. It's hosed me 2 years in a row. It's got to go. No, I really like that tree.
Yeah, the owner's like, I don't want you cutting any trees. And then, you own it, and then it's just it'd be a completely different outlook. Even I think if you did kill something off that ground, it's just a completely different feeling, because the first one you kill after you own it's gonna be incredible. You finally you did all the work, the effort, saving all the money, and you own it. And then even if your kid killed off of it, and you get to see that, and then you're like, one day this will be there. This just a compounding, not only making money, but compounding of memories on that property, and the opportunity to. I didn't start off with any land, but now if I buy this, my kid's going to have this, whether they buy or they sell it or they hunt it after I'm gone. They're going to have that option when, instead of me having to grind. And I think that's how every giant farmer got started. Their great grandpa was like, I'm gonna send it on this 20-acre coal mine ground, and then now 3 years down the road they got 20 acres, then he got 40, and then they compounded, and now they own 2,000, and they farm 2,000, and they're just rolling. So someone's got to start that eventually, and hopefully, our listeners, if they're thinking about buying something small, they just knuckle down and can do it. But we had this conversation. It's really nice to have a lot of money in the bank, 'cause you have that cushion. And I was on the edge, like, man, it's like nice to have that money there, because if anything happens, you feel solid, you feel secure.
Yeah.
And to just have that ripped away, and you're like, well, I got this grass over here. It's good to go. That it's definitely a really risky move. That's why you got to plan it out. You got to understand, like, this is what life is going to be for X amount of years. This payment isn't just going to go away. So. It's there.
Yeah.
So.
That's where it comes down to the planning for sure. Yeah. You don't want it to be like some knee-jerk reaction. I think having a really strong foundation and an idea where you're comfortable and not overextending yourself. Yeah. I definitely would say that's key.
When you were talking about, kind of trying to find an area to hunt, is there any resources that you found or people have talked about where they're looking for ground? Are they looking at like harvest data for certain areas? Say you want to buy like in a certain county, or how are people going about that?
It's different. It's different for areas. I do most of my deals pretty close to where I actually live. So I think that's where, if someone from out of town, asks about a parcel, there's a good chance I know 3 of the 4 neighbors at the property and like what's getting killed there. So that's certainly an advantage of working with someone that's truly local to there. I see some agents like cover a giant part of the state, and then you ask them questions like, oh, was that was that parcel leased at all? And they're like, no, it wasn't. I was like, I didn't know leased it. So it's like, like, so you don't really know if you're getting the full story and scoop. So I think in terms of like people that I work with, I try to be transparent with them on what's going on in the area. Now, I think harvest data is definitely something that a lot of people do, but a lot of those like Boone and Crockett entries, like I feel they're not a true reflection of the area. And I think that there's pockets of, with whitetail cribs and what we do for Exodus, there's pockets of big deer everywhere.
Yeah.
Like any of the states, there's some areas where it's like some really big deer. So I guess if someone was to like be on Earth for the first time, the key would be to like find those pockets and not necessarily rely on a lot of like the hard
That's
data.
kind of where I try to get my lease. I'm like, I know where the pocket of giants is. There's like good deer all over, and then there's pockets of like really, really solid deer. I'm just like, I got to find something in that crevice. And the one I'm trying to buy is like on the very northern edge of the armpit of the main trunk, and you get a random flyer every now and then. But if I could get that and then work my way south, that's what I need to do. So,
and you guys know those pockets. I know my pockets in this area, and that's, I think, the key for someone that is not familiar with the area. But if someone's buying in an area that they know, if they're crazy enough to make a giant lifestyle change to buy a piece, they probably know where they're buying it.
Yeah. Another thing I thought about is if a guy is interested on a certain piece, listed on the market, to maybe go and talk to the neighbors and be like, hey, do you guys do any hunting around here? I'm thinking about buying this. Or
you got to be careful with that though, because then you get the disgruntled neighbor. There's no deer here. Like
there's no deer at all. That's what I hear about this one place. There's no big deer out here. I'm like, I don't believe you guys.
Yeah.
I helped a guy buy some ground, and the people that were there prior leased it for like 12 years. And then we ran into them, and they're like, there hasn't been a deer over 140 inches ever on this deer. I said, well, why'd you lease it for 12 years?
Yeah. We just like going. We just like going out there.
There's been some slammers on there since I've stayed in contact with them, and it's like, if you would have got discouraged from that, you're thinking like, oh crap, I screwed up. But just like knowing the area and like where it was, like there's big deer there. There's been 160s, 170s, and even a 190 got killed off the neighborhood last year. So it's like, you just know the area. Like when you know the area, you know the area. It's like a second language. You can look at the map and be like, oh, that's good.
Yeah, that's good. And then another thing that, my wife was like the giant push for me to buy something, because I keep losing leases. You can't lose a lease when you own it, You get in somewhere, you get the ground really figured out, you start killing, or then like last year we got a giant piece lease, there's big deer all over it, and then you lose it October 12th, and you're like, well, what are we going to do now, And you can't lose what you got, what you bought. That's yours to hunt and decide. So that's a giant factor, because around me, it's pay to play. Like, there's no one that's just like, yeah, just go ahead and go out back and kill as many as you want. Pretty much coons. If you want a coon hunt, there's no one that coon hunts anymore. If you want a coon hunt, you can literally go to any farmer and they'd be like, yeah, just go annihilate them, because they ruin the crop so much. And that's the only reason we get the turkey hunt the place that we turkey hunt, because the guy's like, too many turkeys out there eating my crops. I'm like, there's like 0 turkeys on your piece, but we're gonna keep hunting it because it's the only place we got.
Nice, that's funny.
But
it's crazy. And even like you made mention to earlier, like when you have a lease, in terms of you're not making it the best version that you can, because it's like, do I really want to pay to plant trees when I could lose this next year, or do I really want to like invest in this parcel when I can? It's when it's your own, you can treat it like 100% like your own, because it is, and I think that's super exciting in itself.
Yeah, you never know. You could have the best relationship with the landowner, been hunting there for 10 years, and like your landowner a couple years ago, wife gets cancer, and they're like, okay, we might have to sell a piece. The life happens, and you don't ever know if you're gonna, be able to hunt that the next year. A light switch thing could happen. So I know a lot of people that hunted the same piece for 15 years, and then one year they're like, well, we're not up there anymore. I'm like, whoa, you guys been there forever, and now they have nowhere because they've been set on that one piece. They can just go and go and go. And if we lost our one piece of private, we'd be 100% public. So we got to get something locked down, and this is the way I'm going to try to do it. So
yeah, that's exciting. So what's your timeline then? Like, before this season or next year?
Probably next year. Yeah, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
The amount is figured out. The bank's cool with it. It's just me signing the down payment check and sending the horses.
We'll send.
Yeah. I'm gonna need like what are the giant horses?
The Clydesdales?
Yeah, I'm gonna need like 2 Clydesdales to haul the amount of balls it takes to sign that check to the bank. Because it's just like that's completely out of my element to spend that much money on anything. Like I'm always like, I'm gonna buy the cheapest thing to get me by, and it's gonna work, you know. And that's just my personality. But this is the complete opposite. You just gotta throw ass loads out of it, and you're like, okay, that was the bad part. Now it's just the plug away. I can handle the monthly payment. That ain't the problem. It's just that full send of the mentality thing, you know, you just got to get okay with it and just say, okay, this is what I'm doing. Here it is. So I'm almost there. I just don't want to drain my savings 100%. I want to have a little, and that's when I said, hey, will you give me till January? I said, that's fine. I'm not in a hurry to, you know, sell right now. So I said, okay, this will give me another 6 months to crevice, so I'm not at zero, but I got this piece of grass over here. So
that's exciting though, man. I'm excited for you.
Yeah. So we kind of did, you know, making a plan, figuring out the area you want to hunt, you know, making sure to talk to your wife. Is there anything else that you could think that you know, to let a guy know, maybe something that a guy on the podcast has said that seemed like a really solid tip that wouldn't be thought about?
Yeah, there's been some really good episodes. I mean, we did a buyer's guide checklist with Jeff Sturgis, and like that was a really good conversation. I've actually listened to that a couple times myself, just to like, because there's a lot of good information in there. His biggest thing too was, I think some people are paralyzed by the amount of time, like how long they look for a parcel. And he said if he wanted to buy a parcel, he could find one in about 3 months. I think you've talked to people, well, I'm sure, and like I know people that are like, well, I'm waiting for the deal, or I'm waiting for this, I'm waiting for this one parcel, and like all of a sudden 6 years pass and you still don't own a piece of ground, and you're right where you were. So that's one thing that I found interesting. Like once you are ready, and you know, no parcel is going to be perfect. Kind of like pick the best one you can and start enjoying it and make it to what you want, and then eventually you can find, you know, that quote unquote dream piece. But like with his habitat plans and everything, I feel like you can make a lot of parcels really good. And he's walked through like, you know, if you have these types of neighbors, then do this. If you have these types of neighbors, do that. So I think that is a really good conversation. And the biggest thing is just being sure that you're on board and like you're willing to make the sacrifices, and hopefully have it compound into something really exciting. Like you said, Bill Winke started at 0 acres and built literally an empire.
Yeah.
From some conversations I've listened to on other podcasts, sound like he was like, they were glad everything went right, because if it didn't, it could have went really wrong. So like he was like really stressing, or, you know, stretching it thin when he got the second piece, because he was like, I don't want anybody else to get this, so I'm just gonna go for it, you know. And that took some balls, but it paid out for him. You know, he worked and made a career out of killing absolute giant whitetail. So hoping to talk to him really soon. I'm excited about that. Yeah. We're hopefully supposed to record a whitetail cribs with them in August. Potentially.
That's gonna be awesome. Yeah.
It was kind of cool. We sent him I sent him a cold email, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I watch a lot of them." I'm like, "What?" That's pretty cool. So they're getting their new place set up. So if they're ready, he's on my list to email this.
Yeah, it was super cool when he's. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
When he started posting all of his bucks to Instagram, I was like, I had no idea. Like, you don't watch all of them get killed. And he's like, I killed this one this day and this. And it was like 30-something days he did that. I'm like, all right, this guy's got some bucks on the wall for sure. So
yeah, that was really cool. I knew who Bill Winke was, but within this last year, I've started watching a lot more of his content. And I was like, man, this guy's a real deal. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've always liked his content for years. It's been like one of my go-to Midwest whitetail, and he wasn't there last year, and I'm like, it's still good, but that voiceover voice, you cannot compete with that. He could get a full career of just voiceover. You need a voiceover on your video? I got you, man.
The video that they put out, and it went through every deer that was killed off of his piece, and it had like his kids out there and stuff. I really enjoyed that because,
Yeah.
I mean, it just got to see that not just Bill in a tree, but Bill out there with his family. And he's killing deer. And then, of course, he's getting his kids on deer. And you know, they're getting it done. And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I have to watch that. It sounds
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you guys been absolutely crushing the whitetail cribs, man. The amount of work you guys put in for that is just we talk about it like the amount of work. People have no idea how much work that takes. Like, props to you guys, because that is just an absurd amount of work to bring video content to people. So.
Yeah, I mean, we have a full team to do it. So even like last week, we hired a new guy named Lucas to help edit a lot of the YouTube videos and be another field producer. So last week it was Chad, myself, Cameron, and Lucas, and we were on the road the entire week, like Milwaukee, Madison, and La Crosse, and then Minnesota, and then all the way back down to Milwaukee, and then like southern Wisconsin, and a week, and then you're recording podcasts then too, and then you have it so freaking scheduled tight, and you're like, I wish this podcast could be another 40 minutes, but we have to be in the next spot in a half hour. So it's fun, man. It's cool. It's I don't go on all those trips. Cameron pretty much handles a lot of the whitetail crib section and edits all of them. So, but man, they're fun whenever I get to go on them. Anytime we get to go to Iowa, I always go because it's just another world over there. And then you just get to meet a lot of cool people. It's fun.
Yeah. I we're going to talk to Scott Buckley here soon. And, he was talking about, you know, he's like, that was pretty cool when they came over. I was like, yeah, I liked it, man. I dig it. So you guys going to Iowa, that's always where they're like, I want to go just 1 year. I live so close, but everybody's like, man, there's just 130s everywhere. I'm like, well, sign me up, man.
yeah, that sounds great.
That sounds awesome because I'm struggling to see one.
When we talked to Ryan last year, and he's like, there's bucks everywhere.
He's like, there's bucks everywhere. We weren't seeing, it was when it was hot. We weren't seeing anything. Dude's seeing 8-10 bucks a day. I'm like, what?
And he shot a slob too, right?
Yeah. I'm like, what is going on? He's passing all kinds of deer. I'm like, okay, we're out here struggle busing.
Shit is legit, I guess.
See a fork and horn.
You guys should just jump the border.
Yeah,
you guys should just jump the border.
We're like an hour away from Iowa. You know,
we got like 12 buddies, and we keep saying we all just need to get a piece over there. Just buy a piece over there, and then we all
rotate it.
Yeah. So. But one of us would draw a tag.
Here we are. But here we are.
Here we are thinking, maybe Northern Missouri. Maybe Northern Missouri. Got to get the gun out to get a chance.
Even the people in Iowa, I think, are some of the nicest as well. There's like I don't know. I love Iowa too. If I were to move anywhere, it would definitely be Iowa.
Yeah, I think so too. Me too. Iowa or Northern Missouri or somewhere. If I didn't have what I have established here, I'd be out of Illinois. That's guaranteed. But once you're kind of established and
your roots,
the only thing we got is we got whitetail. If we didn't have whitetail, this place would be trash.
True.
We got that going for us. Other than that, we don't really have a knot. Turkeys are even kind of,
at least over here but I mean, you go
there's
west
pockets,
a little bit. I feel like there's a whole different population over there.
Yeah, around here it's just kind of shaky.
Yeah, it's in the pockets for sure.
All right, well, where can people find all this content and absorb it?
So I'll probably send you 2 link trees, and I'll have all the links in there. But you can head over to ExodusOutdoorGear.com. We're getting ready to do a Velvet Fest here, really soon. So that's something we're always really excited about. This year is going to be the coolest year by far, I think. We have some different things. We're simplifying the campaign a little bit, so that's exciting. You head over to the YouTube channel, Exodus Trail Cameras. We have podcast, Trail Cam Radio, and then we have the Land Podcast, and we're pumping out like 4 videos a week on YouTube. So if you like hunting content, there should be something. There should be one series that you like. So I definitely would appreciate that. And it's awesome to hop on here and talk with you guys. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been awesome, man. I wanted to get this out to our listeners. I feel like there's a lot of just normal guys that are on the edge of thinking about buying in our listener base, kind of around our same age. So I think this would be beneficial for them to maybe come to your podcast, take some of this knowledge and scoop up as much as they can and make a plan. Like 5 years ago, I wasn't even on the radar to even think about buying a piece. So that's how fast your life can change in 5 years. You can really So if you're making a plan right now and everything goes good and you're prepared, and then in 5 years you're even better off than you were throughout your planning, it's just going to be that much easier. Maybe you can, instead of getting a 40, you can get a 60, but if you're planning on that for 5 years, I think that's really, really key. So,
yeah, they can help me up. Give me a call too, because I think a lot of times each situation is different. I'm not the end-all be-all expert, but I definitely would be happy to bounce around.
Yeah, we've talked for hours about it, so you're definitely a good asset to have on a phone number call to get some in-person, intel. Maybe that question wasn't answered on the podcast, but they know where to find you and they can just direct ask you. So.
Yeah, one last thing. The goal of that podcast is to help 100 people help buy their first piece of ground. That's something I take super serious. So whether it's like just a piece of information, or I actually talk to you on the phone, or I help connect you with someone that is a legitimate expert in where you're looking, I want to help 100 people. I don't know if it's going to take 1 year or 15 years. I don't care, but I'm going to do that, and I'm super excited. To get some of those last names that have been in the plat book for maybe 4 or 5 generations.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome.
Exciting.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge goal. Just to have that legacy, you'd be like, man, I started this free content just to try to help people out, and look at all the names that, maybe just a little bit of tidbit made it a little bit easier to really make their dreams come true. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to help normal guys' dreams come true. Because I don't know anybody that whitetail hunts that, man, if I could just own this 40 that I'm hunting, or I could own this 60, I could fine-tune it and make it my own. And this is given the outlet that people need to finally be able to do that.
100%. Yeah, I've been sitting on this project for probably December, and then I was like, kept dragging my feet, and I was like, screw it. Like, I got 4 podcasts in the bank. Just gonna press publish. Let's go. Figure out how to go. I'll never have more time, so just get it going.
Yeah, that's true. You never have more time than you do right now. It's always getting smaller and smaller. So, all right, man. Well, we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, we hope you enjoyed that. If you were in the market or just have the idea that you might want to own some land sometime in your life, this is going to be a great outlet for you guys to go and just absorb content. You're going to be able to get whitetail content on there too, because he's talking to people that are buying land for whitetail, and he's talking to people that are very successful whitetail, and then he's also talking to people that are first-time landowners, and they're going to have stories to tell of
do's and don'ts,
and probably the successes that they've had on that land because of they bought it and then this happened and they killed this deer or whatever, or the kid killed a deer. It's going to be cool to relate all that. And like Jake said, if you ever need to reach out to him, you can find him on Exodus, or you can get a hold of us and we can get you directly hooked up with him if you have any questions. He's the guy to do it. I've spent hours on the phone with him talking about land. I was going to buy a piece through him like maybe 5 months ago, and it fell through. So he was going to basically, I found the land. He was going to approach her, do all the contract stuff, and then I was just going to sign the dotted line. So that is an option. If you do have a piece of land, he can help you out and
do some groundwork.
Yeah, do some groundwork, kind of get an idea of what the other ground around there is worth, and do some of the work that nothing about, that he specializes in, and we're always trying to put ourselves with the smartest people in the room, and that's why I was like, hey, I got this land, and he's like, well, this, and I'm like, I got to start writing notes, because and that's exactly how that podcast is going to be, because, like you said, you got a guy who's buying land in Wisconsin, it's going to be completely different than a guy buying land down here, so it's definitely cool to have that all in one, like a one-stop shop where you can go and, well, I'm from Louisiana, I can't relate to Midwest guys buying land, and boom, he has someone from the South on there, and you can relate to that and get that one piece of information. People think they need a script, but if you have one piece more than you did before, that's a win. You can start planning a little better. But like always, we love you. Appreciate you listening, tuning in. Try to always do the right thing and try to leave a legacy. And one of the best ways to do that is to buy some land.
Yeah.
And Whitetail Legacy is out.